right, guys, thanks for stopping by. I wanted to do an episode following up with my blog posts about some of the stuff that I've been up to. Next week I'm going to Bonaire, and I'm really excited. It's an amazing dive location. It's a really cool place. If you've never been, it's shore diving capital of the world. So something I've been kind of dreaming about for the past year or so is the Kraken Sports KRL-09s macro to wide conversion lens. So it's a wet lens. So, you know, if this is your port, it mounts on either via a screw or a flip adapter. And I'm really excited, but there are a lot of challenges with trying to get this adapted to my camera. Like some of you out there, I'm a Canon shooter and pretty good cameras overall, but the problem with Canon is they don't make a 60mm macro lens for their full frame cameras. And this lens is designed to be used with something that is of the 60mm focal length. You can use it with longer lenses, but to get the maximum field of view and to get the maximum use of the lens, it's designed for 60mm. So I got the lens, and it took me like a whole day to figure out how to get this lens adapted to my camera housing. With a little help from Matt at Kraken Sports and a little bit of creativity, I was able to get everything to work. I didn't want to set up my whole camera housing just for the video, because there's a lot of things that I'd have to take on and off. But my solution, they have a pre-approved lens list, Kraken does, of lenses that are supposed to be adaptable to the KRL. And I don't happen to own any of them, because back when I used to do portrait photography, I used to do a lot of prime lenses. So I don't have like the 24-70. I would love to get it. It's just, I was tired of spending money trying to solve problems, right? So a lens that I already owned, it's really old, but it's the Tamron 28-75. And this is also a macro lens. It's a pretty good macro lens. It may not be as sharp as like the Canon 100mm, for example, but it's a zoom lens, and then that's kind of a negative to it too, that it zooms out instead of internal focus. Tamron does make a 60mm full frame macro lens, but I did buy that about 2 years ago, but it's too old to communicate with the R5. And when I had emailed Tamron about it, they just said, sorry, too old, we're not gonna worry about it. It's like, you know, thanks. So I just thought it'd be real simple. You just zoom it to 60. It's about the same length as my Canon 100mm, but during my testing, I was getting this really bad vignetting. I mean, the image circle, you could see the image circle, and like, yeah, you can kind of live with it, zoom in on the photo in Photoshop or whatever, but you know, underwater, there's just so much going on, and it's really hard to always account for just the middle of the circle, and then it takes away a lot of your compositional ability. So after a lot of experimenting, and I'm proud of myself without having to order anything new, what I found was if I zoom this to about 40 to 44mm, okay, and then I have a 1.4 teleconverter made by Kenko, which for underwater photographers, this is a really cool piece of kit, especially if you have a fisheye lens and you want to take a picture of a kind of a smaller subject for that close focus wide angle. A neat trick that I picked up, admittedly from Alex Mustard, is to put a teleextender on it, and it'll kind of give you a little bit of a closer view of the animal while still keeping a lot of your fisheye lens perspective. So I zoomed this to about 44 times 1.4, gets you around 60. You could zoom it out a little bit. And then with my rubber ducky bathtub test, which I could post the photos in this video, I was able to get rid of that image circle. I had no vignetting in the photo, and it looked like a really cool perspective. And what's neat about this lens, the KRL, the wet lens, is that it'll pretty much focus right up to the dome. So if you have like a frogfish or a seahorse or something a little patient with you and you're calm around your animal, this will zoom and, it'll focus very close to the animal. So I'm like really pumped. My only complaint, but I'm sure there's a lot of physics that explains this, but it's a little big, and underwater it's going to be a little bit lighter because there's a built-in buoyancy to it. But when you flip it up on the adapter, it does take up a lot of space on my housing, but you know, there's just, you can't have everything, right? And then what I did, there is a red ring that goes around this. I left it on my flip adapter. I have the Saga flip adapter, and it has a really annoying little notch to it. And basically I have to take apart the flip adapter to put the KRL on. So what I did was I just left the little red ring on it so I could still screw in the KRL. And in theory, I could also screw in my +6 diopter for it. So that's going to be my solution for now. And then just doing some basic tests with this. 44 millimeters for macro. It may not be the best. It's kind of a medium range macro, but from my experience with my 50 millimeter, it's not a bad focal length to shoot underwater. You're not going to be shooting really tiny subjects, but for like some of those kind of smaller to medium sized reef fish, it should be pretty good. So I'm excited to try it out. I'm excited to get different angles here, and to be able to do both wide angle and macro and wide angle macro on the same dive is really cool. So I'm like really pumped to give this a shot and add some creativity to my photos. Down the road, I would love to get the EMWL, but it's a bit pricey, and you know, for now, this guy is it. Not that it was cheap, but it's like more than half the price of like the EMWL. Although that is beautiful piece of lens right there, made by Nauticam. So that's my little update on this, and I'm going to try to do a follow-up video on some of the shots that hopefully I'm able to get while I'm in Bonaire. All right, thanks for checking in.